Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean Moss with Down Payment Resource. We also have in the background Melinda Harris, our Director of Marketing, as well as Veronica Kandawal, our Director of HFA Relations. They will be answering questions as we go. We want to keep this interactive, so please put your questions in the Zoom Q&A feature. We're going to have probably a pretty busy chat, but we're going to look for questions that you want answered in the Zoom Q&A feature. We are recording this. We will send out a copy of this recording afterwards, but let's get started. Today's topic is those darn DPAs, and the snark is on purpose, but today we want to acknowledge and then talk about how to overcome objections to down payment assistance programs and misconceptions about those programs. We know that there are plenty of them. We're going to break down the top 5 objections and misconceptions that we hear, and we're going to talk about how to combat those. And that's all feedback from your peers. It's not stuff we made up. This is feedback that we've gathered from loan officers and real estate agents all over the country over the last couple of years since we've been doing this webinar. So more specifically, our agenda today is to give you a brief update on the state of down payment assistance, what's going on with DPAs. And then we're going to talk about perceptions and misperceptions about down payment assistance. The crux of today's agenda, though, is to acknowledge and break down and overcome the top 5 obstacles and objections that we hear about down payment assistance programs from real estate agents, loan officers, and others involved in these transactions. And we'll talk about solutions. And then we'll give you a little bit of help. We'll talk about some tools that can assist you as you open the door to down payment assistance for more buyers, start more conversations with more aspiring buyers, and start to take advantage of the many down payment assistance opportunities that are out there. And we'll end with next steps and some best practices for you. So a little bit about us at Down Payment Resource. We have been in business for 15 years, and we are led by a team of people with decades of experience in mortgage finance as well as real estate. We are essentially a national database and a matching engine of all of the more than 2,300 homebuyer assistance programs across the country. We'll break that down and show you what those programs look like here in a moment. But on top of that database, which we keep up to date and current, we have built tools for real estate agents, loan officers, and mortgage lenders to make it easier to deal with down payment assistance programs. We also offer Down Payment Connect for real estate agents and loan officers. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. And for those of you who are members of our MLS partners, which we have a list of that we will show you, we have integrated down payment assistance information into your MLS for agents and your clients to view available DPAs as you or your clients are searching for searching for properties and curious about the down payment assistance programs available. So we'll show you a little bit about that too, but that's what we do. Ultimately, we are here to help you connect home buyers to the down payment help they need. So what's going on with down payment assistance? Let's start with the nature of homeownership assistance programs out there. So we already said there are over 2,300 programs across the country, but don't freak out. You don't need to know about all of them. You just need to know about a couple that are in your market that offer unique advantage or incentive to aspiring home buyers that, if they were aware of, would compel them to dialogue with you, to have a conversation with you about their path to home ownership. So of all of those programs, most of them are some form of down payment or closing cost assistance. So on the left side here, 75% of all of these home buyer programs are some form of down payment or closing cost help. Now that breaks down into several categories. As you can see below that, 86% of those DPAs or down payment assistance programs defer payments, meaning that you don't have a monthly payment on the down payment assistance loan. 58% of those DPA programs are forgivable. That can be in part or in full. That can be at some period in the future or incrementally over time. 53% of DPAs both defer payments and are forgivable in some form. And then, of course, you have true grants. Those are gifts. So everything I just covered, those are down payment assistance loans, right? Forgivable loans, deferred loans. Some down payment assistance programs are gifts. That's a gift at closing, no second lien, no second loan on the property. And then, of course, you have some repayable seconds, which means you close, you have your mortgage payment, and you have your down payment assistance payment out of the gate. So there are a lot of different kinds of down payment assistance programs. That's just breaking them down big picture from a repayment terms perspective, how they are repaid or if they are repaid. And then there are other programs as well. And we're going to talk about weaving some of these in to your conversations as we go today. But your state housing finance agencies, and in many states, there are local housing finance agencies as well. They offer affordable first mortgage products along with their down payment assistance. Those can offer below market interest rates, reduced mortgage insurance costs, or higher LTV financing. There are also, at the bottom right, mortgage credit certificates, which are tax credits in many states. It allows you to claim a portion of your mortgage interest paid as a tax credit. Where they are available, they are a brilliant opportunity for home buyers to gain even more value as they pursue home ownership. And then there are still some other programs. 11% of what's out there are matched savings programs, housing choice vouchers, and other programs that are maybe less common, and we won't focus so much on them today. But suffice it to say, there are tons of opportunities out there of varying types for buyers in every market. Where do they come from? Well, I already mentioned that every state has a state housing finance agency. There are multiple such agencies or similar agencies in some of your states. There are also local housing finance agencies. These, if you've heard the term bond program, that's used a little too loosely. They're not all bond programs, but those are typically the bond programs that you hear about. But those are going to come from your state and local housing finance agencies. Then you have municipalities all over the country that may get funding from HUD or other sources, and they offer down payment assistance through the county or through the city. There are employers that offer down payment assistance to recruit or retain talent. There are nonprofits all over the country that offer down payment help, closing cost help, and often also offer homebuyer education, housing counseling services, and so forth. And then there are still more sources for these down payment assistance programs through the Federal Home Loan Bank Network, from community development financial institutions, from local housing authorities, community land trusts, and more. So there are many different kinds of organizations or housing agencies out there that are funding and offering homebuyer assistance or down payment assistance to aspiring homebuyers. And these programs are everywhere. So if you're in a high cost market, let's say California, there are actually more programs in California than any other state. However, every state and every county and every market has at least some homebuyer assistance help. Obviously, there are more programs in some markets than others, but there is literally no county in the country that is not covered by some form of homebuyer assistance, at least from the State Housing Finance Agency, all of whom offer their programs statewide in their respective states. So high cost, low cost, east, west, north, south, urban, suburban, rural. There are homebuyer assistance programs in every market, in your market, for your clients. And still more news in terms of down payment assistance trends. We have seen an increase in the total number of homebuyer programs available for many quarters in a row now, going back to, I believe, even back to 2021. Every quarter, we take a snapshot of what's out there and we publish our homeownership program index. For several quarters in a row now, we have seen an increase in the number of programs available. So all of that is to say, down payment assistance programs are still available and they are not going away. In fact, demand is through the roof as more and more consumers become aware of these opportunities, more lenders and loan officers adopt them, and more real estate agents start conversing about them with prospective clients. We're also seeing DPA providers continue to enhance their programs with higher assistance amounts, higher income limits, higher purchase price limits. All of this is to try to keep the door open to more aspiring home buyers. I already mentioned we're seeing new state and local programs continue to launch in markets all over the country, and about 84% of all of these programs are currently funded, active, and available to your clients, your buyers, your borrowers. And that's a normal number. In fact, it's been very consistent for several years. Some programs are seasonal, but There are plenty of programs out there that don't run out of money. Your state programs, for the most part, if they're bond funded or TBA funded, they don't run out of money. Now, sometimes they'll have a special program that's got, one-time pot of money, but by and large, your state programs do not run out of money. Now, a few other facts, and then we'll get into perceptions about down payment assistance here. 40% of all homebuyer programs do not have a first-time homebuyer requirement. That means the door is open for repeat buyers or even sometimes current owners. And also remember, the definition of a first-time homebuyer for the purpose of down payment assistance is simply that they have not owned a home in the last 3 years. And often that's broken down even further, that they haven't had titled interest in a primary residence in the last 3 years. So while many programs do not require that the buyer be a first-time buyer, remember that the definition of a first-time home buyer, at least for the purpose of down payment assistance, is that you haven't owned in the last 3 years. That opens the door to yet more people, right? 32% of homebuyer programs allow manufactured homes. 30% of homebuyer programs allow multifamily or 2, 3, or 4 unit residential properties. So duplex, triplex, quadplex, right? Remember that, because we're going to talk about inventory as one of the big obstacles. 32% of DPAs allow manufactured homes, 30% allow multifamily residential properties. And about 27% of all programs are statewide, which essentially means they come from your state housing agencies. All the rest are basically local. And there are over 300, in fact, well over 300 programs that offer extra incentives or unique opportunities for those who have served in the military or perhaps work in certain professions. And again, that all comes from our Homeownership Program Index, and we're quoting from the most recent Q1 2023, and the next one will be out soon. Now, let's get into perceptions about down payment assistance. We hear a lot that, and this may come from lenders, right? They add costs, there's no margin, they add post-closing complexity and risk. There are concerns about training and adoption issues among real estate agents and loan officers. Are they going to be sufficiently trained? Are they going to adopt these programs? There are concerns about the impact on approval timelines and closing timelines. And in fact, we're going to very directly address that in a few minutes. There are also concerns about the availability and continuity of funding. Look, we track the funding status of these programs. You can use our platform to figure out if a program has money right now, and we're constantly monitoring that. So, and additionally, I already mentioned that most of your state programs, they don't run out of money. Those days are long gone. But yes, there are some programs that are seasonal, and we track that. So ultimately, one of the things we hear is we love the concept, but we struggle with the logistics and economics of down payment assistance. Well, we would suggest that you rethink that, and we're going to give you millions of reasons to do so. But first, let's get into the crux of today's event. We want to first acknowledge the top 5 obstacles that we hear when it comes to down payment assistance. So I'll run through these, let's acknowledge them, and then we're going to break each one of these down. We're going to talk about what the actual problem or perceived problem is and where it comes from, what causes it. Then we're going to look at solutions for each one of these. What can agents do? What can loan officers do to combat these obstacles or misperceptions? So, number 1, inventory is limited and unaffordable. That's certainly true. We're not, there's no misperception there, right? But there are ways that we can combat that concern about DPAs. There are ways that down payment assistance can help can be leveraged to help a buyer get into a home that might otherwise seem unaffordable. Number 2, there's confusion about down payment requirements. Put aside down payment assistance programs and the help that's out there. There's confusion among consumers about how much they even have to have as a down payment in order to buy a home, in order to pursue home ownership. So we're going to clarify that. We're going to talk about the 20% myth. Number 3, sellers refuse contracts, or they balk at offers that include down payment assistance, or maybe even just FHA financing, right? So we know that that's not just a perception. There are plenty of sellers and sometimes the agents representing them that don't want to see contract offers with down payment assistance. That may have waned a little bit in the last, I don't know, almost year, but now it seems like it's coming back. So we're going to acknowledge and talk about that. Number 4, I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to talk about this concern that down payment assistance will extend the transaction, prolong the closing date, delay closing, and so forth. There are some reasons why that perception, or we think often misperception, comes about, and so we're going to address that. And number 5, agent and loan officer partnerships. We're going to talk about what some of the issues are there, and we're going to break down what both real estate agents and loan officers can do to secure and strengthen productive partnerships. So those are the top 5 obstacles. Now, before I move on, I want to pause for just a moment and maybe just a quick yes in the chat. Have you closed a transaction, whether you're a loan officer or a real estate agent? Have you closed a transaction this year where your client used a down payment assistance program? Let's just see in the chat real quick. Mary, want to know that story? I can't even keep up with the names here. If you're answering yes to that question, throw in the maybe even in the Q&A, just tell us a little bit about the story. Give us a sentence or two, and we're going to give you our contact information. In fact, when the chat slows down here, Mel, if we can maybe put info@downpaymentresource.com in the chat. We want to tell those stories. We have a case study coming out soon. We'd love to tell these stories about buyers getting down payment assistance, how their agent helped them, who was the loan officer, how many dollars did they get, was it their first home, how did it change their home ownership journey when you introduced down payment assistance. Donna, love that. She's got 2 educators right now who are receiving down payment assistance and closing next Thursday. Just had a first-time home buyer earlier in the year. Donna, tell us that story. We want to know more. We want to broadcast that, get you some PR, some attention. Jennifer, single mom buying with a DPA, stacked with Invest Atlanta. That's awesome. 2 different DPAs, $20,000 total, made a difference. Jennifer, tell us that story. Reach out to us, info@downpaymentresource.com. I see more in here. Renee, you've got a story. Mahid, you've got a story. So anyway, pardon the pause, but we love this. Guys, it's working. You've got peers on this webinar that are using down payment assistance. Donna, again, chiming in, you use it for public service clients mostly. That's awesome. We love that. So we want to tell that story. We want to broadcast solutions. And part of this webinar, in fact, almost all of this webinar was built on feedback and input from your peers around the country. So what I'm about to get into, this isn't our content. This is just curated from your peers. So with that, let's dive in here. Number 1, inventory is limited and unaffordable. So what's the problem here? Let's acknowledge the problem, and then we're going to get to solutions. So we're going to do that for all of these top 5 obstacles. So inventory is limited and unaffordable. Problem is, yes, we have historically low inventory. Days on market is low. Buyers don't have a lot of time to compete to try to get a bid in, which means they have to be mortgage ready, including covering cash to close, down payment, closing costs, and so forth, right? But we also know there's enormous demand and probably even more pent up demand. But we hear stories every day in all the news outlets we're all monitoring. There's enormous demand for home ownership, but there's a ton of people just benched on the sidelines because they feel like they can't compete, or they have misperceptions that we'll talk about as we go through the rest of these. And we know there's limited supply. I kind of already said that, historically low inventory, but we're not ramping up supply. So we have to look at alternatives, which is something we're going to get into here in a sec. Prices are either steady or increasing. There was maybe some thought earlier in the year and maybe some declines in prices in some markets, but at least what I've seen in the last few weeks, it looks like things are kind of leveling out, or prices are steadily increasing again in a lot of markets around the country. So all of this means buyers are struggling to compete. And again, as I just mentioned, many of them just say, you know what, I'll just sit on the bench. I'll just renew my lease. That's not what we want. We want to help them pursue home ownership and at least have one conversation with them where we can candidly explore down payment solutions. Now, from an inventory perspective, what are some ways to get around this obstacle? Well, I told you earlier, remember, 32% of DPAs allow manufactured properties. 30% of DPAs allow 2 to 4 unit properties. So when we think about inventory concerns, think about what the solutions are. What about agency owned? So, nonprofit owned, municipal owned properties. There are inventories of properties that they might purchase, blighted properties that they purchase, rehabilitate, and put back on market at cost or at low cost. That's an outlet, right? And let me be clear, none of these is a golden goose, right? They're just incremental increases in the kinds of properties that could potentially become a home for some of your clients. Community land trusts. There are community land trusts all over the country. You can buy at a discount because you're purchasing the home and you don't own the land that it's on. Now that comes with some restrictions down the road, right? You're not necessarily going to see all the appreciation, but you can get into a home and you can start to build your home ownership journey instead of the rental journey. What about homes that need minor repairs? And we're not talking about a hole in the roof and no appliances and no water heater. That's not what we're talking about. Homes that maybe need a little TLC, and if you've got a crafty buyer and maybe they can take some of that on themselves, as long as you can get a mortgage on it or maybe a 203K, something like that, that's another option. And again, just incremental increases in available opportunities. What about coming soon properties? Are you monitoring those? And then, of course, as I mentioned, duplex, triplex, quadplex. Think about even a first-time home buyer who wants to get into home ownership. The delta between a single-family home and a duplex is not double the price, right? You might be able to get a single-family home for, I'm just going to make up numbers, and some of you in certain markets are going to be like, 300. Let's just go with 300, right? Obviously, in LA, that doesn't make sense. In New York City, that doesn't make sense. But let's go with an even number, $300,000 for a single family home. In the same market, that doesn't mean a duplex is $600,000 just because there's 2 units. It might be 350, 370, right? So yeah, there might be a slightly higher price, but down payment assistance programs that allow you to purchase a duplex, that gives the buyer the opportunity to get into a home, to own that home, and potentially have that cash flow opportunity from that second unit. Or if it's a 3 or 4 unit property, they've got more units. And then lastly, manufactured homes, modular homes. Now, this doesn't mean mobile homes, right? But manufactured homes, there are plenty of down payment assistance programs out there. So if there is manufactured inventory in your market, then consider that along with all of these other options or opportunities. But importantly, counsel buyers, your clients, about what the process and the competition is going to look like. What are they going to face when they put in bids? What are the pitfalls you're seeing that aren't winning bids? And then likewise, explore not just down payment assistance, but those mortgage credit certificates, the tax credits we mentioned, affordable first mortgage options that can open up other mortgage financing solutions. There are other ways to attain affordability too. Inventory is one of them. And I feel like we've covered most of this, but I'll end that part with, this came from an agent in Houston, Texas. She basically called this calculated patience. Narrow down the buyer's list of must-haves, but make sure they're ready to strike when the right property hits the market. And again, that means mortgage ready. You had a candid conversation about cash to close with a loan officer. If there's a DPA involved, that's all set up. That application's ready to go. You got to be mortgage ready when the property hits. So that was inventory. Inventory is limited and unaffordable, yes, but there are plenty of solutions that offer incremental gains in opportunity. Now, number 2, confusion about down payment requirements. What's the problem here? Well, we'll quote from an Urban Institute study. Now, it's a couple years old. It was called Barriers to Accessing Homeownership. But part of that survey, or a part of that study, was a survey of prospective homebuyers. They were millennial renters at the time. When asked how much they thought they had to have as a down payment to buy a home, 65% of those renters thought they had to have 15% or 20% down or more in order to buy a home, as in order to pursue home ownership. Meaning, if they don't have 15 or 20% down, they're not even going to react to your marketing. They're not going to talk to you because they have this misperception that they need way more than they actually do as a down payment. And on top of that, as part of that same study, when they surveyed those renters and asked if they were familiar with low down payment programs, 76%, more than 3/4 of renters, said they had little or no familiarity with low down payment programs. Now, I want to clarify, that doesn't mean down payment assistance. That means FHA, 3.5% down. That means conventional, 3% down, 5% down. That means eligible veterans, 100% financing if you're eligible. buying in a rural area, USDA, 100% financing if you're buying an eligible property. So that means they don't understand that you can get into a home with sometimes zero for a rural property or a veteran, but 3%, 3.5%, 5% down. And on top of that, we have to make sure they're aware of solutions to the down payment obstacle. So obviously, home buyers aren't familiar, especially first-time home buyers. They're not going to be familiar with industry terms and, more importantly, industry guidelines. Our marketing messages have to head that off. We have to get the correct message in front of people. And we have to combat that magic myth, 20%. You do not need 20% down. So that's the problem. What can we do about it? Again, combat misperceptions. Buyers have got to know in your marketing, in your conversations, that you don't need 20% down. And quite frankly, what a timely, relevant, critical message to be sending out in your marketing, in your social media marketing, your email campaigns, on your website. Talk about down payment requirements as they truly are, so that aspiring buyers know and understand you do not have to have 20% down to buy a home. Yes, it's great if you do. You can avoid mortgage insurance. Of course, we know that. We know that, right? All of you are real estate agents and or loan officers on this call. We all know that. We have to make sure that our future clients, next week, next month, next quarter, next year's clients understand you don't need 20% down. I don't mean to keep harping on it, but that's a critical issue. And honestly, it's a ripe opportunity for you in your marketing. Now, when it comes to confusion about DPA requirements, that's often simply a lack of education. And so I'm speaking to the real estate agents and loan officers. Get outside your bubble. Educate yourself about the down payment help available in your market to your clients. You don't need to know 2,300 programs. You don't need to know 50. You don't need to know 5. Just get to know 1 or 2 or 3 good DPA programs that are available in your market and start to expose those programs to your clients. Provide DPA education to your clients. One great way to do that, and we talk about this in our Down Payment Connect webinar, one of our favorite ways of promoting DPAs to consumers is by telling the story of a buyer that you just helped. So imagine this. You've got a big Facebook following or Instagram following, wherever you're doing some social marketing. Tell that following, those potential future clients, what you just did with the last first-time home buyer you worked with. So all of you who shared in the chat that you've recently worked with the down payment assistance program, have you told your audience that you did that? Maybe you can even get permission from that past client to use their name, maybe their picture, tell their story, talk about how much money they got to help out with down payment and closing costs. But tell that story to your other prospective buyers to, 1, let them know that you're the expert that can get it done, and 2, that there's hope, there's opportunity out there for them to solve for the down payment challenge. Now, that said, if you're uncomfortable with that, find a referral partner. Consult with your broker, your agent peers, consult with your loan officer partners, leverage the expertise of your loan officers, leverage downpaymentresource.com. If you're a member of one of our MLS partners, use Down Payment Resource inside your MLS. We're integrated into listings in your agent views and in your clients' views when you send them listings. Build relationships with the local DPA providers. Get to know their programs, their staff, their guidelines, requirements, timelines, networking opportunities, training and teaching opportunities. Work with your state housing finance agencies. They all have even more staff than a lot of local DPA providers, and often would love to have conversations with agents who are looking to learn more and open the door to down payment help for more buyers. So now let's talk about number 3, sellers refusing contracts with down payment assistance. And I'll broaden that just a little bit. We know that for several years now, sellers have often balked at offers that included not just down payment assistance, but even just FHA financing. So yes, there are some sellers, and quite frankly, we think, and again, this is all from your peers, right? We hear from your peers that often it's the agent representing the seller that misunderstands DPAs and is in the ear of the seller saying, "Nah, we don't want that deal." So that can come from bad past experiences, which can sour current attitudes. This can also come from the fact that sellers don't want these offers, can come from the fact that down payment assistance is not framed as a value add. Sellers also may erroneously fear closing delays. We're going to talk about that next, but that concern is certainly part of why sellers are potentially hesitant to accept the DPA offer, in part because the seller, and let's be frank, the agent working for the seller, they want certainty, and they associate down payment assistance with a lack of certainty. So what can we do about this? How do we address this? How do we address this with sellers? First and foremost, agents and especially loan officers. So for those of you who are loan officers on this call, and by the way, loan officers, chime in, ask questions, like give us your feedback in the chat. You know, are we off base here? What are you hearing? What's your policy? What's your approach? But agents and especially loan officers, leverage your reputation as DPA experts. If you have any DPA expertise, especially if you're a loan officer, then tell the seller, pick up the phone, call the seller, call the seller's agent. And we hear this all the time. High volume DPA loan officers, high volume DPA origination loan officers will tell us, I get on the phone all the time. I'll talk to the seller, I'll talk to the seller agent, and I'll tell them, look, I do DPA all day long. I know this program, I know the staff, I know the timeline, I know the requirements, I know the policies, I know when to get the home buyer education class done, I know how to do the application, and so on and so forth. And tell the seller, give them that certainty and say, hey, look, I'm an expert. I do this all day long. You got a contract, says 30 days, we're closing in 30 days. Don't worry about it. I got it. Leverage the value of a DPA. Down payment assistance programs are not always just for down payment. They can also cover closing costs in many cases. What does that mean for the seller? What does that mean for the agent representing the seller? It means higher net proceeds for them if your buyer is not going in asking the seller to cover closing costs. Now, you all know in your markets the extent to which that's common or uncommon at the moment, but if your buyer has their down payment covered and a significant portion of or all of their closing costs, you are positioning them to make a more competitive bid and to more likely win that bid for that property. Additionally, down payment assistance programs can open the door to conventional financing. So we know a lot of first-time homebuyers use FHA financing, right? Makes sense. That's what it's there for. But if you've got a down payment assistance program that offers, let's say, 5% of the price for down payment assistance, that's conventional financing, which means no upfront mortgage insurance, lower monthly mortgage insurance, and that monthly insurance goes away once they get below 80% LTV. And on top of that, there may be, better interest rates or better pricing for the mortgage. So think about that too. And this is something that you have to think about while you're going through pre-approval. Whether you're an agent or loan officer, work with your client, understand where they are now in terms of cash to close and what the potential impact of a down payment assistance program could be. And then ultimately in a contract offer, frame that appropriately. And I already mentioned, provide assurance that the deal will get done. Sellers are looking for certainty, right? They're looking for assurance. As long as you understand the DPA requirements of the program that you're using, you can prevent avoidable delays. And we'll talk a little bit about what some of those might be. And you can also get everyone on board with sort of level set with appropriate timelines and get their commitment to meet those timelines. And let's be frank, that includes your client too, right? Hey, look, you've got to do this and this and this by this date in order for this to work, but they'll do it. And then lastly, I guess, don't disclose more than you have to about financing. Now, I want to be careful here. You're all in different states. We've got people all over the country. Your state laws are different. Your disclosure forms are different, but disclose what you have to. Don't disclose any more than you have to about financing. Simple as that. And again, I want to reiterate, all of this advice comes from your peers. We didn't come up with this. We curated this from your peers all over the country. And I do want to add, clarify for sellers and the agents representing them, a qualified buyer with down payment assistance is still a qualified buyer. They are a top producing DPA loan officer will tell us all the time, I don't care if you're putting 20% down conventional or 3.5% down FHA with a down payment assistance program, you're a qualified buyer. If I qualified you, you are a qualified buyer. So with that, let's move on to number 4. Down payment assistance extends the transaction. Okay, this is rampant. I'll say that. This is a rampant concern. Problem is, anything can cause a delay, not just the down payment assistance. However, you all may well know, anytime there's a down payment assistance program involved, it's the easy target to point the finger at to say, oh, well, there was a DPA. That's why there was a delay. Well, let's think about that. Maybe cash to close was not fully investigated up front. Maybe the loan officer that was involved didn't fully investigate cash to close and didn't line up a down payment assistance that could otherwise have been the solution and prevented the extension or the delay to begin with. Or maybe they recognized that down payment assistance was necessary, but later on in the process, so they found the solution. But if the DPA isn't started at the same time as the mortgage, then yes, that can cause delays, right? You got to start everything up front. Or sometimes we've heard this too. The homebuyer education class wasn't completed. Oops, we forgot about it, didn't tell the buyer they need to go complete a class. Or to the last point, the down payment assistance program was started later in the process, but we didn't realize we needed to do a homebuyer education class. So I would say on that point, just know this. For most DPA programs, you have to take a homebuyer education class. The buyer does. So just get it done early. And then sometimes this problem is just due to miscommunication or a lack of communication among the parties involved. Is the loan officer talking to the buyer's agent? Is everyone talking to the seller and the seller's agent? Is the buyer themselves involved in hearing what they need to hear and doing what they need to do? So that's the problem and some of the causes of the problem. Now, I will acknowledge there are some DPAs that just take a little longer, but that's not the general rule. That's more the outlier or the exception. That said, most of them, any loan officer who knows what they're doing, they're going to close in basically the same amount of time as any other transaction. Now, what can we do about this concern that down payment assistance will delay closing? Know the DPA you are using. You've got to know the guidelines, and agents, get to know these programs yourselves. Absolutely. The more expert you are, the better off you and your clients are going to be, but also leverage the expertise of your loan officers. So agents and LOs, know the DPA you're using, the timelines, the application process, review periods, set proper expectations about homebuyer education. Do that homebuyer education class early. We just mentioned that. Most homebuyer education classes will give the buyer a certificate of completion that is good for a year. It is valid for a year. So you could take that class now, even if you don't plan to buy until next January or next May even. Now, obviously don't push the limit, but those classes are good for a year. The buyer's going to get educated. They're going to be a better client. They're going to be better off long-term. They're going to learn about the home buying process and the homeownership journey. They're also going to have completed that requirement. And that's really kind of the main additional requirement for a lot of these programs. So do homebuyer education early. Don't let that be the delay. And then, of course, ensure everything else is in order. I mentioned earlier, a lot of times the DPA gets blamed for causing a delay. Well, was the appraisal ordered in a timely manner? Were all the inspections done? Was insurance lined up and completed? There are other, was title coordinated? Are the seller and the lender coordinated? There are so many other ways that a transaction can go wrong. Obviously, ensure that you smooth out those kinks. But with regard to the DPA, know the program you're using, follow the application process or protocol appropriately, understand where there might be some nuance about that program, and don't let homebuyer education be the delay. There's no reason to wait to get that done. So agents, work with loan officers who know DPA programs well and who close on time. Now, number 5, agent and LO partnerships. What is the problem here? The most common question we get, and I can't even keep up with the chat at this point, but I bet it's there. The most common question we get from real estate agents, and it's been this way for years, is the following. How can I find a loan officer that offers down payment assistance? Or sometimes it's, how can I find a loan officer that can help my clients with DPA? What they're really asking for, loan officers, listen up, They're really asking for a loan officer that meets 3 criteria right here on the screen. Do you offer down payment assistance? Do you want that agent's first-time homebuyer business? And are you good at DPAs? Problem is, many loan officers are not promoting their DPA expertise. They are not highlighting their down payment assistance program offerings, and they are not active in their communities in such a way that that message would be broadcast, in particular to real estate agents. So agents, we know what you're looking for. We hear it every day, every webinar, every training. Loan officers, there's enormous demand from agents for your help, and in particular, your expertise with down payment assistance programs. Those of you that chimed in earlier in the chat and said that you had a client recently that used the down payment assistance program, how did you find the loan officer? Was that an existing partner? Did you go to the DPA provider and ask them? Was it a referral from your broker? Did a peer tell you? Tell us how you found that loan officer. And then loan officers, let's see what we find. How are they connecting with LOs, and are you out there connecting in the same manner? And I'm not here to finger wag, that's not the point, but I'm telling you what we hear all over the country, and this is what we've heard for years. So agents, what can you do? And then we'll get to loan officers. Real estate agents, talk to your current loan officer partners about their DPA program offerings. Maybe the question hadn't come up. Maybe you hadn't had a client that needed DPA, so you never thought to ask and they never brought it up. But they may have down payment assistance programs they can offer. So ask the question, ask your current existing loan officer partners, which DPAs do you offer? Ask your broker, ask your peers, do they have referrals? Do they have recommendations? And educate yourself about a few down payment assistance programs. And we've said this a couple times, but it's just so important. Even as an agent, get to know 1 or 2 or 3 of the DPAs in your market. Maybe even go to a homebuyer education class with one of your clients. If they're going to use a DPA and they have to take that class, sit with them through part of that class and just look at the content, look at what they're learning. Seek out new loan officer partnerships if you don't have a partner right now that works with DPAs. And if you have become familiar with some of those DPA programs, test the knowledge of the LOs. Give them a quick test. Nothing wrong with that. Also, agents, court loan officers that teach homebuyer education classes or first-time homebuyer seminars. They are highly likely to offer down payment assistance. Agents, talk to DPA providers. Ask them who their top producing lenders are. Ask those DPA providers, who the best LOs are that do the most volume, that submit the best applications, that consistently close on time in your market. And lastly, agents, court other agents that list DPA eligible properties. Get on their mailing list. Are they listing affordable inventory? Get on their mailing list. Stay attuned to their listing inventory. Stay in contact with them and build those relationships. Those can be great relationships for you and also a source of inventory, solving one of the earlier problems that we addressed. Okay, so same vein here, but loan officers. What can you do to establish better, stronger, more fruitful, more productive, more meaningful relationships with real estate agents and ultimately grow your purchase pipeline? Become DPA subject matter experts, or if you already are, broadcast that. Attend DPA provider training. Your state housing finance agencies, they do trainings all the time. A lot of local DPA providers, they have training opportunities, networking opportunities, maybe even opportunities for you to teach some of their classes. Incorporate down payment assistance information into your marketing content. Now, obviously, abide by, if you're in retail, abide by your company's marketing rules and regulations and so forth. But to the extent that that allows you or enables you to broadcast down payment assistance information, at least for those programs that you participate in, do that. Do more of that. Loan officers, work with your product development team, or maybe that's in capital markets or secondary marketing, but who within your company makes decisions about which down payment assistance programs you offer or you participate in or you have access to? Find out what's available in your market. Go to your product team, ask them if they have those programs available. We can help your product team too. We have a whole platform for your product development staff if you want to introduce them to us to foster that effort. Loan officers, host seminars first-time homebuyer classes, teach homebuyer education courses, contact your state housing finance agency. What opportunities do they have for you to teach rather than just simply learn? Get more involved in your community too. Loan officers, are you working with unions? Are you going to agent events? Are you talking to employers? Are you going to your faith-based organizations? Get active in your community, not just to reach the potential borrower, but also to reach the real estate agents that are going to serve those same borrowers. Leverage social media, be online when your agent partners are working, and craft an intake strategy with your agent partners for new buyers. When agents come to you and say, hey, I need help with down payment assistance. I've got some clients, they're going to need down payment help, but they're credit and income qualified, ready to go. Or you can help them make sure that that's the case. But nonetheless, craft an intake strategy. When a first-time home buyer comes in, are they going to have maybe slightly different homework from you? First and foremost, if there's a DPA involved, hey, you know what? Here's the link. Go take the homebuyer education class. But nonetheless, when the agent comes to you, have a plan, have a strategy in place to tell them, hey, look, here's what we do. I do this DPA, and this DPA. Here's how we're going to handle these new clients. I've got a strategy in place. I got your back. Let's go to market. So those were the top 5 obstacles. And the solutions were explore creative inventory alternatives. We talked about manufactured 2 to 4 unit, municipal owned properties, and so on and so forth. You don't need 20% down. We have to combat that myth, get that message out in your marketing. And that's the gateway through which buyers will come to start a conversation with you about, okay, I don't have to have 20% down. Well, that changes my vision of home ownership. That changes my vision of my path to home ownership. Leverage the value of a DPA. Can you use it for closing costs? Then you don't have to ask the seller. Can it open the door from FHA to conventional financing, offering better mortgage options and more affordability to your buyer? Don't over disclose what you don't have to disclose on contract offers. Then set buyer expectations and prepare early. Make sure everybody knows what needs to be done for the DPA, and they do that on time to avoid delays. And lastly, create innovative agent and loan officer partnerships. Bonus, join the Down Payment Insiders. I'll show you that in just a second. But I told you earlier, I'd give you millions of reasons to rethink down payment assistance. We have found through analyzing almost 4 billion in declined loan volume that 33% of declined loans on average were salvageable with a DPA when they were declined because they were income and credit qualified and eligible for down payment help and declined for cash to close or ratios, which a down payment program can address. In fact, on average, through those studies, we found a 6% LTV reduction when you took the best available down payment assistance program, which also then not only addresses cash to close, but lowers the ratios. Additionally, we found that about 68 million single family homes and condos and townhomes across the country qualify for at least one, if not many, down payment assistance or other homebuyer programs. So from an inventory perspective, a huge portion of the inventory in this country is actually eligible because remember, these programs are market adjusted. If you're in a higher cost market, you're going to see higher income limits, higher price limits, and often more assistance dollars than in a lower cost market. And lastly, about 32 million renters right now are mortgage ready, but many don't think they qualify. Why is that? Maybe they think they have to have 20% down, or maybe they're having a DTI issue. This is from Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. Now, I haven't updated the numbers recently, but if you look at September 2021 to September 2022, according to Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, given median prices, median incomes, and interest rates where they were at the time, a buyer with no other debt is facing a housing ratio of 46%, and that's as of September. So I don't know what that looks like right now, but that's up a lot from a year before that, right? However, down payment assistance programs can help mitigate ratios as well. When you lower the loan amount, you're lowering the principal and interest payment, and you're potentially lowering mortgage insurance if you can get better mortgage insurance pricing, for example, by migrating out of FHA financing into conventional opportunities. So Yet another challenge, but yet another solution. Remember, DPA customers become customers for life. Those of you who have closed a deal recently with a client who used DPA, I'd actually love you to chime in the chat again. Have you gotten a referral from that client since you closed them? They're going to refer business. They're going to come back to you for repeat business. Now, lastly, I mentioned we would give you tools to help you along the way. If you are a member of one of our MLS partners, look for this button inside your MLS in your agent single line, agent detail views. Your clients can see it when you send them listings too. I'll show you our list of MLS partners in a second. If you're a member of one of our MLSs, we have integrated all of these down payment assistance programs into your listing data. Join Down Payment Insiders on Facebook. And I see we just posted the URL in chat. Facebook Down Payment Insiders. That's 11,000 agents, loan officers, some DPA providers, housing counselors, all coalescing in this Facebook group, engaging, networking. I've seen a little of that going on in chat. There's a lot of networking going on in the Down Payment Insiders group on Facebook. Agents trying to find loan officers joining, connecting, starting to do business with each other based on capacity to fulfill down payment assistance requests. So listen in, chime in, learn, share, but join Down Payment Insiders and use it to your advantage. Down Payment Connect. I'm about to show you a list of our MLS partners, but not only for our MLS partners and their members are we integrated into the listing data, but you also have Down Payment Connect for free. So in a moment, I'll show you the list of our MLS partners. If you're not a member of one of those MLS partners, or you are a loan officer, you can subscribe to Down Payment Connect at downpaymentresource.com/DPC. You get, whether you're an agent or a loan officer, you're a landing page unique to you where you can offer consumers the opportunity to do a down payment search in your market to find programs available to them. Loan officers, you also get a directory of all of the programs in your market, and you can customize which ones display to the consumer based on what you participate in. You have some other tools as well, some back office search tools, a comparison tool. So loan officers, there's a whole package for you as well. So downpaymentresource.com/DPC. But you have it for free if you are an agent and you are a member of one of our MLS partners on the screen here. I'll quickly read them off. HAR in Houston, Real MLS, Jacksonville, California Regional, Greater Alabama and Birmingham, Spokane in Washington, MyBoard in Indianapolis, Austin Board of Realtors in Texas, Northwest out of Seattle, Central Virginia Regional in Richmond, RealComp in Detroit, One Key in Greater New York City and up the Hudson Valley, Greater Lansing in Michigan, First MLS in Atlanta, North Star in the Twin Cities, MLS PIN in Massachusetts, Stellar in Central Florida, and San Antonio Board in Texas. If you are a member of one of those MLSs, you have Down Payment Connect for free. Log into your MLS dashboard, find the down payment resource link, and it takes you right there to your DPA tools. All right, lenders. If you're an enterprise lender, we have a platform for you. Our directory is the admin center, if you will. It allows you to find and review and vet and mark as approved all of those programs your company participates in, and you can also see everything else around your footprint. That powers what loan officers see in the LO portal, what underwriters see in the underwriter portal, and how consumers engage with you in the consumer portal. Happy to discuss that if there are any sort of corporate lending institution folks on here as well. Here's our contact information. I tried to leave a few minutes for questions. I see we have been very busy. So Mel, Veronica, what's going on in Q&A? Any trends we need to address first?
Yeah, hey, Sean. We have been busy. There is so much networking going on in chat, which is fantastic. But I did want to mention to everyone, unfortunately, Zoom saves the chat in a very odd format. So we don't typically share it. I see a lot of people sharing email addresses and connecting, which is wonderful. But I would definitely encourage everybody to join our insiders group and kind of carry the conversation over there. We see it often, networking going on over there. I don't want anyone to miss, some of the stuff that's been going on in chat. And like I said, it's tough for us to share that with everybody. But on another note, we have had several questions about the recording and slides. We will absolutely be sharing the recording with everyone and the slides that'll likely go out tomorrow. And then other than that, I didn't really, I mean, we've had some program specific questions. Oh, you know what, Sean, I actually had several questions today about property types, mostly manufactured versus mobile homes. If you want to take a second and address that, I've had a few questions about that today.
Yeah, sure. Manufactured versus mobile. I mean, to keep it simple, manufactured is permanently affixed to a foundation. Mobile is not. That's the simple answer.
Okay, thanks. And then I don't really have any other trends, so to speak. Unless, maybe Veronica has seen something, but uh, again, just wanted to make sure everybody continues all this fantastic networking over in the Insiders group, and I'll post that link one more time in case it got lost.
Yeah. So, well, Veronica, anything you wanted to address that you handled behind the scenes?
I think you already mentioned this, but one of the questions we're receiving is how to find a loan officer that is available with that does DPA in the markets. What our suggestion would be for how they can locate someone to help them out.
So, and with all the networking going on, I guess in chat, if you need something out of chat, go now. We'll be here for a few more minutes, but go grab a screenshot of it and just text it to yourself or email it to yourself. That's probably the best thing you can do right now. But finding a loan officer. So agents, if you're looking for a loan officer partner that offers DPA and meets those three criteria, they offer DPA, they're good at DPA, and they want your business, then a couple of things. Talk to your current loan officer partners. Maybe they offer down payment assistance and it just never came up. Start there, see what they've got. Talk to your broker or your peer agents. See if they have any referrals or recommendations to a loan officer they've worked with that they know to be trustworthy and reliable when it comes to down payment assistance. Next, go to your program providers. Go to your state housing finance agency. Every state has one. Look at their list of participating lenders. Many of the state agencies also rank top producing loan officers. Those are the ones doing the most volume, and they get on that list because they're good at down payment assistance. And then talk to your local DPA providers. Maybe they've got a list of a few LOs in your market that submit applications frequently. They do it well. They do it on time. They close on time. So there's a few different outlets for you. I do want to address a couple of questions I'm seeing. So there were a few questions about, can a buyer receive down payment assistance from a bank other than their primary lender? No, not really. I mean, if you're getting a loan from one institution, then your financing comes through them. Now, that lender may well participate in any number of programs, or they may have their own DPA program, but wherever you're getting your first mortgage, they're going to have to line up your DPA as well. Can you get down payment assistance for a build out on properties like a church or a school? I think Veronica addressed this, but I'm not sure the audience, everybody saw it, but down payment assistance is for the purchase of owner occupied primary residences, single family, detached, condo, townhome, in certain markets, co-ops, manufactured homes, and potentially 2, 3, or 4 unit residential properties. That is a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. So if you're looking to do a build out or like a conversion or something, then basically the answer is no. Where does the money come from? It comes from a lot of places. Some funds come from HUD. Some come from state funding sources. They can be funded through any number of means, fee levies, all kinds of things. A lot of your state agencies, they're self-funded, so they might do bond funding, or they might do like secondary market activity to fund the programs themselves. So there's not one place, but let's see. Are there income limits, especially in high cost counties? Yes, and I mentioned this earlier. In high cost markets, you're going to see a lot of programs have income limits, and a lot of programs have purchase price limits. But I mentioned a few minutes ago, they're market adjusted. So in a higher cost market, you're absolutely going to see higher income and purchase price limits. The income limits and the purchase price limits in San Diego versus St. Louis are going to be very different, right? Because San Diego is a much higher cost market, and so the DPAs in that market adjust accordingly. Let's see, that may be it. So let's do this. For anybody that closed a transaction recently with a DPA, we've got our contact information up on the screen. And I just want to implore you one more time, if you've got that story to tell, there are a lot of people that need to tell that story, including your peers. And we're not talking about giving away competitive advantage. We're talking about letting more people know that these transactions happen, that some of these misperceptions are easily overcome, that you had a specific plan and process and partners in place that got you and your client to the finish line. So we want to talk about who they are. The more agents are familiar with what you did, then when they go represent a seller, the more likely they are to open the door to a client like the one you just helped. There are a lot of different ways that telling that story can assist not just the consumer, but other agents, loan officers who may want to get involved in down payment assistance and so forth. So that's my one last plea. If you were one of those folks that chimed in, or even if you didn't chime in, maybe you're feeling a little shy today, but if you closed a transaction where your client used a down payment assistance program, let's say this year, right? We want to tell that story. Somebody chimed in about working with teachers and civil servants. What a great way to say thank you to those people. So let us tell that story. We'll turn it into, I don't know, a blog, PR, case study, maybe get you some press, but let us tell that story. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any further questions, reach out to us at info@downpaymentresource.com and go try out Down Payment Connect, whether you have it for free or not. Thank you all for joining. We had a wonderful time. Have a great day.